Hello, gorgeous, gorgeous beings. It is your friend Riz and the host of the Lioness Method podcast. And we have a great show for you today. I have a wonderful guest, Terra Carbert, who is a recovery coach, who's going to be joining us in just a little bit. But before we get started, I wanted to just share a little bit about the 7-day challenge that I am about to start on Sunday. And I want to invite you, you beautiful kings and queens that are ready to bring your big goals into a loving container, a community where we are going to celebrate you and the desire, the yearning that you have in your heart to do something bigger, better, and to materialize that within a week and really get the catalyst, get the fire going in your belly to make that happen. So today we are going to be talking about how to set goals and how to achieve goals with Terra. And I can't wait to bring her on today. So we are going to bring her on in just a moment. So stay tuned. Hello, divine beings. Welcome back. And we have the wonderful Terra Carbert here. She is a recovery coach and the host of Ambitious Addicts. Terra teaches women in recovery how to love and believe in themselves so that they can make their dreams come true and stay free from addiction. And when I met this woman on Instagram, I knew that I had to have her on the show to share her vision with you guys. And the more that her and I chat, the more I feel like we have so much in common, which is how I think we were just kind of drawn together by the universe to help one of my clients recently. And so I can't wait to hear a little bit more about her journey, about how she arrived at doing what she's doing, and the wisdom that she has to share with all of you today about how to set goals and really dive into achieving them. So welcome, Terra.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, no, I was just mentioning, like, we had such a cool story about meeting on Instagram. And do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about how we met?
Yeah, it's really random. So, admittedly, over the course of the last year, I've been kind of silencing a lot of my social media. I haven't been checking my Instagram. I did a little bit of Facebook, got off a Clubhouse, like really working on myself in another area, and just randomly checked my Instagram on the same day that Riss had messaged me asking whether or not I had someone local in Minnesota who could meet somebody at a meeting. And oddly, I checked Instagram that day and I was able to kind of rally some support. I couldn't attend that meeting, but we were able to rally some support and support somebody else in recovery. And then turns out we have this shared passion around supporting others in recovery and entrepreneurs and women supporting women and all sorts of things. So there's all this stuff that it's like we were supposed to meet and we did. So I'm grateful that you reached out to me and really just looking forward to seeing how we can serve the world together.
No, it's so exciting. And Terra, through your, and you sent out a blast to your network because you literally have a huge network of providers that are in the same field where we are, peer support and just boots on the ground in recovery of people that are willing to love and support others that are on this journey. And I had not one, but two amazing people reach out to me to support that person, and they are still in contact with them. So thank you. I just want to tell you that I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart for being there in that moment. And I really felt like it was a moment of divine intervention. It never ceases to amaze me, like how when we are working our program and we are earnestly just like following our heart and showing up for ourselves, and not only our clients, but for ourselves, and doing all the things that keep us on track, that the pieces just fall into place. Like the support comes from places where we're like, oh my gosh, I never even imagined that I would be able to connect with a human being in Minnesota in a very rural area that would be able to make that happen. So
yeah, in a
thank
short
you,
amount of time
universe.
too. We just whipped that together in
Like
a couple
that.
hours. Yeah, it was great. It was great. And
It's
how brave of
awesome.
you to reach out and for that person to reach out to you. I mean, a lot has to come together for those things
Mm-hmm.
to happen. And whether we're talking about 12-step recovery or people in peer recovery in a formal clinical basis, I mean, there are so many people out there willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who have the courage to ask are often surprised at where the help comes from. And I used to be, but now I'm just like, of course it happened that way.
Right? You're
Right.
like, of course it was just going to fall into place.
Yeah.
And I love that so much. But this is going to be all about you because I am so curious about hearing how you became a recovery coach. And we're also going to talk about goal setting. But tell us a little bit more about you and your path to being in the role that you are now as a
Yeah.
recovery coach and a
Yeah.
podcast host and all the things
Yeah.
because you're also a recruiter.
Yes.
Right before we hopped on, you're like, you were a recruiter for 20 years, you said?
Yeah. Close to 20 years. Like, I don't want to admit that yet, but yeah.
No, I said the same thing literally 2 days ago because somebody was asking me, how long have you been a recruiter? And I was like maybe like 18 to 20 years. So I
Wait, you're a
love,
recruiter too? Wait, what?
yes,
Oh, I did
I'm
not know
also
this.
a recruiter. Yes,
I did
it's
not
so
know
funny.
this. Oh,
We
that
have
is
so many similarities in our path. I'm like, this is no accident. So
wow. Okay, that's new. That's another check. We have this in common. Yeah, so my career was professionally, I was in recruiting, both mix of agency for people who know what that is. It's like headhunting where you're literally cold calling people trying to offer them opportunity or clients talent.
that part was always my favorite, the cold calling. I mean, I don't know about you, but
My favorite is actually working with the job seeker.
yeah.
And
No, I
the
was being
individual.
sarcastic. It's
Oh,
silly.
I
No.
thought you were serious. I was like, you're everyone wants to hire you.
I'm like,
Uh,
no, I don't miss the cold calling.
um, but yeah, in the moments when you were making the cold calls, trying to find candidates in particular, when you get that right person at the right time and it's the right opportunity for them, it makes all those hangups, all the annoying voicemails so worth it. So, I love-hate relationship with cold calling.
100%.
So mix of agency and corporate. I feel like my mic is popping in and out. Are you hearing me okay?
No, your sound is great.
Okay, good. Something's going on in my headphones. Um, that professional life, recruiting was agency first and then corporate talent acquisition and then corporate talent acquisition strategy and leadership. And I really thrived in outwardly. I thrived. I had a lot that happened in my personal life that I never dealt with. I never dealt with the emotions. Like this achievement at work was kind of a numbing agent for the pain that I wasn't dealing with emotionally. And also, I was a compulsive gambler. So, definitely overworking, definitely compulsive gambling. And I entered recovery from compulsive gambling in July of 2016. Haven't placed a bet on anything but myself since that day.
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, it's definitely been, a self rediscovery. And one of the things I needed to learn how to do was love myself. I mean, throwing away everything I worked my whole life to earn on a regular basis was a clear indication of not loving myself or believing that I was worthy of the accomplishments I had earned and worked so hard for and spent so many hours working for and secretly throwing it all away. So I practice escapism and self-destruction in many ways, but gambling's the one that got me on my knees and crawling into the rooms of recovery. And in that process, really thinking about my values and how I was really living in these two worlds, both as an addict who was gambling and manipulating and lying to cover up my addiction and hiding things from people. And also the things I believed in my core to be quote unquote my version of good. And then where I was bringing my time, my talent, my energy, and my effort in a professional way, and how those things were just not lined up. I like small business. I believe in the underdog. I was working in very, large for-profit organizations that, my values just weren't aligned. I'll just say it that way. And I really was
Mhm.
putting on a face, if you will, or a mask at work every day. And as I grew in my recovery, I really started to think about the possibility of living a life where I never had to hide any part of myself and that I could be myself wholly. And one conversation really switched things for me with my son. He's 24 now, and at the time he was a sophomore in college, and he was in a class that he hated. And I had this discussion with him about, I just want you to be happy. What are your dreams? I want you to go after your dreams. And he looked at me and was like, Mom, what about yours? Haven't you always wanted to start your own recruiting firm?
Oh, I love
What's
that.
stopping you? And it was like just those 3 words at the right moment where I was
Mhm.
healed enough to actually believe I could have my dream, and I didn't need to focus on the obstacles, but I needed to focus on the possibility. And so it was my beginning of self-employment, about a little over 4 years ago now, where I shed my corporate skin and became an independent recruiter. Um, and then a couple years into that, I had my first big business fail, which I now look at and think, well, that was exactly what was supposed to happen too,
Mhm.
where I ended up kind of spending ahead of revenue, making a key learning decision that was helping me really see my relationship with myself, my relationship with money, my relationship with the world for exactly what it was. And as I entered some of those difficulties with my own recruiting business, um, hired a life
Mm.
coach, and began working with a life coach to help me really, that reflection, like having somebody show me exactly the words I was saying to myself and how I was standing in my own way, and even a time analysis on how, like, if you're supposed to be cold calling and that's what's going to propel sales in your business, and you're
Mhm.
not cold calling, what are you doing with that time? And one of the things that came up was I was coaching for free. I was giving resume advice, interview advice, pumping people up, salary negotiation advice. And it was kind of this big aha, like, oh, I want to be a coach. And so I
Mhm.
shifted to career coaching and very quickly learned that
It's
the
in also, I just want to jump
go
in
ahead,
really quick
sorry.
because there's so many gems that you're just rolling right through. Like, but I think that what you're saying is like they're in recruiting, it is so parallel to life coaching because you really are, you know, helping people transition through one of the biggest processes in their life. Like making a
Yeah.
job change is huge, right? So it does sound like it's kind of like a natural transition there. And
Yeah.
the other thing that you said about like the failure, it's like it's the feedback definitely that moves you forward, right? And I love that you're working with a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And the recruiting, if you Google like recruiters are like all the bad things come up, the impressions of
Yes.
us in the world. But
But
really,
there are a lot, we have to say that yes, there are a lot of recruiters that don't have great intentions, but the recruiters
yes,
that have great intentions to really love and help people, support them during that time are the best ones to work with. I mean, they are transformational beings.
that's it. Yeah, I think the key being, relationship oriented recruiting versus transactional recruiting. Like, are you just trying to close a job, or are you actually trying to make a difference in the work? And so I was
Yeah,
always
we used
kind
to
of
call
that.
it the latter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I operated as a recruiter. So very natural for me to actually progress to this coaching side. I wasn't getting that internal satisfaction from filling the job. I was getting my gift was in understanding, is this in line with what that individual desires and is good at, and an environment where they are going to thrive. And I really good at it. Like, I'm going to own my strength. Like, very, very good
Yes.
at that, and seeing
Uh-huh.
people's potential, and helping make that match with them and with my clients. And when I did that time study with my own coach, realizing how much time I was coaching for free, and was just kind of this, oh yeah, I love doing that. She's like, well, then why aren't you doing that?
Why aren't you getting paid for that? That's right.
Right.
Know
Right. And
your
even
value.
turning down money from people sometimes,
Mhm,
offering to pay me. Yeah. So that's what brought me to the profession of coaching. And then
mhm,
as I was doing some career coaching, really learning from the people who were participating with me in that they were pulling me to other areas of their life, their relationships, even their, yes, a career decision, but thinking about like, well, could I move across the globe and work in another country, and like big life decisions. And I was like, hold up, if I'm going to be a life coach, what does that mean to me? Who do I want to serve? Who do I want to be? Who am I
mhm,
uniquely qualified to serve? And who do I really want to help? And so that first answer was certainly women in recovery, having this lived experience as a person in recovery and all the changes that that's brought in my life. I'm living a life I never imagined was possible on my
I love
darkest days, and wanting other people to know and believe that that's possible for them. So
it.
that's what brought me there.
Yes. And one of the other things that you had said offline too, which really resonated with me because I'm kind of in the same place with my practice is, it's becoming more open. You're becoming more open to working with men as well, and just kind of seeing the service that you can provide as um, non-gender, right? This is open
Yeah.
to individuals who are open to this type of growth. So is
Yeah.
that kind of the direction you find yourself going?
Yeah, I'm in, I did say this offline. I'm kind of in this, like, in it's still more internal exploration. I think I've
Mhm,
landed on transition. I think I still want to serve women, women going through like a major life change who want some support in getting over a hurdle, or helping themselves understand what what their perceived barriers are, and how to knock them down or climb over them or erase
mhm.
them mentally. Take your
Yes.
pick. Yeah. And eh, you know, I don't know. I'm just kind of open to all of it. I think one of my biggest key learnings, both in recovery and through being a recipient of coaching, is recognizing how my firmly held beliefs and ideas really prohibit me
Mhm,
from all that my version of a higher power, God, the universe wants to bring me.
mm.
So I'm really, that's been my biggest learning, is that I don't need to hold on to the control and hold on to things so tightly, but I do need to listen to myself and tune in to where I feel led.
I love that. That's exactly where it is. And I had actually read on your website that you had early on set goals and had a really difficult time actually getting those goals, which I
Mhm.
feel like so much of your story is going to resonate with the people that are watching, because there are so many of our clients that are in a corporate job right now, and they're just feeling empty, right? They don't feel that alignment. They're not feeling that fire. And maybe they have been setting goals, just like we had in the past, and then just kind of it fizzles out, right? So,
Mhm.
how did you get that fire in your belly to be able to finally set goals that you are going to go after? Because I know we've all set New Year's resolutions, we've all set lofty goals, and then just watched year after year as they kind of didn't happen.
Mhm.
So, what was your biggest catalyst in getting some movement forward?
I think the biggest catalyst, if I had to pick one, was the increasing significantly my tolerance for failure. Not making that mean anything about me or my worthiness or my dream, um, and not taking that as like a personal failure, but as a lesson. Like, okay, you tried that. That's not the thing that's going to work today. What are you going to try next? What are you going to try next? What are you going to try next? And shut off all that noise around, you're so stupid. This is never going to work. This is too hard. This takes too much time. I mean, all those word tracks we have just going on in our mind. I
Mhm.
think so many of us, without formal training or diving deep into how the mind, body, action, thought, feeling relationship all has on us, when our unconscious mind is just running on autopilot, unsupervised, it actually shows up in our actions. And that was so true for me, that's why I chose to look at thought work in particular is the thing that I teach people how to do with and for themselves. It takes a while to figure out how to do that, but those little sentences in your mind are often the exact thing that's stopping you from achieving the goal. I mean, something as simple as I don't feel like it. Like, so
It's a
what?
word. Yeah, words are so incredibly powerful. And I study a neuro-linguistic programming,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And it's the power of our words. And literally, it's how we learn how to speak to ourselves. It's learning how to speak kinder to ourselves about ourselves, because there's nobody, nobody else in our head talking to us all day long, right? Well, hopefully, maybe there might be more than two voices in some of our heads. So,
And
but
yeah, that's it. I think that's the part of it, though, is like we get to decide, as humans, that is one of our unique characteristics in our own brain evolution. I just finished the book Brain Power. So good.
who is that one by? We'll have to put
It's
that in the show notes.
it's Deepak Chopra and one
Oh,
other
nice.
person, and it was published. I didn't even know it was published in like 2012, but I'd never read it before, and I geek out. I geek out on this kind of stuff,
Me
neurolinguistic
too.
programming, and yeah,
I
it's
love it.
great. It's a great read. Um, the Now I totally lost my train of thought. Give me a second. I'll come back.
She's like, is there what you were telling us about the brain in the book that you just read and you were really excited about it? Deepak Chopra.
Yeah. Well, and it talks a lot just about the connection and the power of our words and our thinking and the direction of our thinking and the evolution of the human mind. And that is a unique thing to humans, is that we can think about our thinking. And we can think about our emotions, and we can think about our actions. There's not an animal that we're yet aware of that has the ability to reflect on that and their pure instinct. We've got this prefrontal cortex that can actually hold that stuff up and do some planning and do some reflection and use that knowledge of ourselves to improve ourselves or choose deliberately how we want to live our lives. So part of that unconscious stuff, if we recognize that pattern is there, if I'm saying to myself, like I did on my last day gambling, I'm an idiot, I'm pretty likely to behave like an idiot.
And how do you relate that for the people listening to actually setting and achieving your goals? Like, what is that? How is that helpful?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of my first iteration of self-employment, which was recruiting, and the things that I was telling myself in the beginning around this is going to be so hard, I made it hard, right? I took things that could have been as simple as just picking up the phone and making the phone calls to the people who had jobs advertising. It's a very easy thing to do. And I had a lot of experience in it, and I knew exactly how to do it, but I was telling myself that it was going to be hard. And as a consequence of that, what I ended up doing was spending hours and hours like creating lists of companies to call and trying to get the names, and literally not taking the action of making the phone calls. So that's just one example of a thing that I was telling myself where I was standing in my own way. So now when I set a goal, that goal becomes like
So it sounds like you're saying, like, do it before you're ready. Like, just do the thing. You don't have to wait until it's perfect. You have everything lined up. Like, just take the action.
Yeah, taking the action is going to help us build the evidence that we can, right? If like same with recovery. If I'm telling myself that I can't stop gambling while I was telling myself I couldn't stop gambling, I wasn't stopping. When I began to think maybe I could stop, there's people who could help me stop, that allowed me to then focus on the proof out in the world that those thoughts were true and move towards the solution. And the same with the goal setting. Now when I catch myself thinking about the obstacles or why it's going to be hard, I do actively work to shift into a new pattern of thinking. Once you've got awareness of a thought that could be an obstacle that creates an emotional vibration of dread or I'll just go with dread, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to make, I don't want to make those phone calls, right?
I
Like
don't
if
want to
you're,
make the call.
yeah, if you're dreading it, you're
Mhm.
likely not going to bring the right energy to the action. Where if you're like, oh, I'm so excited to get to my first yes,
This is going to be super fun. This is going to be challenging. Yeah.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
a whole different level of self-talk.
yeah. Like I can't wait to get the first person signed up for my new program, or I can't wait
Mhm.
to, it's just when you bring a different emotional vibrational energy, you attract something different.
I love that.
And so the other thing I would say is that, I hold some people as like, yeah, we all need to believe in ourselves like that. Like, let's look at current modern day people who look at like business. We're looking at some of these individuals as business icons. It's Elon Musk. He's in the headlines a lot lately.
Every day. Every
We
day.
all need that level of belief in our dreams, right? Like, oh, we're going to Mars. Like, there is not an ounce of disbelief in that person's attainment of their goals.
He
Nope,
just sent a car into space. He's like, let me just launch this vehicle.
We're just
For
doing
fun.
it, right? And how many people think like that, right? Or the same, with a lot of business leaders and icons. They're like, yeah, this is happening. Like there's no room for doubt. And yes, they have self-doubt, but they just kind of are able to go right back to, I am capable. I am deserving of my goal. The world needs this thing. The why is super powerful. That's another big thing, is having a really powerful why. I mean, I didn't envision myself being a person who did a podcast or ever spoke publicly or openly about my compulsive gambling. And now my story is on the homepage of our Department of Human Services website. Like, the why is because it could help. If this helps just one person know that they're not alone, all my fear, goes away.
Simon Sinek's book, The Golden Circle?
Yes. I think we geek out on the same topics and books too. Yeah. I'm an avid reader and I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well. And Simon Sinek, Adam Grant. I mean, I've got a bunch of economic stuff I'm doing now on capitalism and fun stuff. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. The why is got to be the driving force. I'm totally on board with that. Is there anything else? What other tips would you give for forward momentum and achieving your goals?
Yeah. That resistance is normal. And that's part of the experience, is that we're going to experience resistance as we move towards our goals, no matter what those goals are. And it's what we do with that resistance. We can look at it as a wall, or we can look at it as something that we have the tools to overcome or move through. And knowing that that's just part of the deal, that's part of life, that's part of us kind of breaking through into being these new versions of ourselves. And again, kind of that don't make it mean anything about you. Is that something that I think I'm coming to see is, I don't know how best I'm coming to see that it's like not even, it's like, oh, yep, here it is. This is just what happens. And it doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to be hard, but it's just like, oh, it's just part of the deal. What's next? This must mean something's great on the other side of this. Like, feel like I'm walking through quicksand right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe that we get to choose our hard, right? Because it's hard. It's hard to be in addiction. It's hard to feel like you're failing. It's hard to be in a place where you're indecisive and you're just kind of sitting there watching everything go by. Like, that's hard, right? So it's like we're totally choosing our hard if we're saying, okay, it's just as uncomfortable to sit here and do nothing because I feel the pain of things passing by than to actually take the action and feel good while you're doing something hard.
Yeah. That choosing your hard is back to that, we have choices we get to make every day. Like, I would choose the hard of sitting down and sending my invoices, one of my least favorite activities to do, to have that money hit the bank. Money hits the bank. It was so worth the hard. Like, why am I tediously ticking and tying out the invoice against what's in my books, against what is in my forecast. Like, why am I doing that? I'm doing that because the money is not going to hit the bank unless I'm doing it.
Yes.
And I have good things I want to do with that money. So yeah, that would be another thing. I think when it comes to the goal attainment too, I mean, the only way we fail is stopping. And we might choose to stop, and it's okay to change our mind, as we've both talked about, like, oh, we're kind of changing our mind about what we're going to do. I've stopped actively marketing recruiting. I'm super good at it, but I have a partner in the community who has a thriving recruiting firm that is like, well, whatever, whenever you need a little extra or you feel like working on a search that we have that's aligned with your values, raise your hand and let me know. I never would have thought that that was possible in the past, that I could just pop in and pop out and when I felt like it and when I wanted to. And here I am, now I have this life where I can have a work week where I work 5 hours and the bills still get paid, and I can do another work week where it's 50 hours because I'm feeling worky. And it's all possible because I allowed myself to believe that I could create this life that I didn't even see as a possibility, but I wasn't willing to give up. That thing I wasn't willing to give up was self-employment. I wasn't willing to go work for someone else's dream exclusively anymore, and that I wanted to work, independently on my own dreams and serving the community I'm in the way that resonates most with me. If you would have told me that 4 years ago, when I'm working in one of the largest organizations, 50, 60 hours a week on their agenda for how something's going to get rolled out, that I could live this life, I wouldn't have believed it. And when I had my kind of revenue hiccup, my business learning, whatever we want to call that, big first epic fail, where I had that moment of like, oh, should I just go back and get a job? And everyone around me telling me, just go back to recruiting. And I chose to be a DoorDash and a Grubhub driver and dream a different dream. And all the noise of, why would you do that? You're so much better than that. You're qualified for so much more. You have so much more to offer the world. And in my mind, taking all that opinion power from other people and turning that into, no, I'm committed to myself. I'm committed to my independence. I want to work on my own dreams. That was something I was not willing to give up, and I'm still not willing to give up. And I don't know if I'll ever work for someone else ever again.
I'm like, snap, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes. You're speaking the truth, like right into my own heart. And I think that you're speaking to every entrepreneur's heart that has heard that feedback from the cheap seats, right? We've heard that saying, like, don't take advice from the cheap seats. It's the people that are saying, get a regular job. That dream is not going to happen for you, that are simply afraid to pursue their own passion, their own dream. Right. And I love that you have that inner drive to continue pushing through. Now, I know you're also have mentioned that you have a very strong spiritual practice as well. Is that something that helps you keep this passion and drive for what you do to serve and keep building?
Yeah, I don't think this desire is from me. That's something that I used to do a long time ago, is really just dismiss my ideas and think like, that's dumb. That's never going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that. And again, kind of that obstacle focus as opposed to the possibility focus. And as a part of my growth in my own spiritual practice, beginning to see that these ideas that were planted in my mind a long time ago that I did nothing with, they happened, you know. I had ideas for products, and years later they're on the market and somebody is serving the world by introducing that product. I'm like, that was my idea. Like, how is that on the shelf in the store right now?
Right. You released it into the collective consciousness.
Yes. And realizing like, now my belief is that these ideas that are planted in the minds of humans are planted there for a reason, and they're intended to spring to life. And it is a true honor to be on the receiving end of an idea like that, and to not take action on it is like robbing the world of something it's supposed to have. And if I don't do what I'm supposed to do with it, that God is going to take that idea and keep planting it until it sprouts. And so I see these ideas now as gifts that I'm meant to do something with, whether that's share it with someone else so that they can take it forward or to act on it. And that by not acting on those ideas in some way, I'm not trusting my higher power. So it's really affected my willingness to do this. Because I used the word called earlier. I mean, this doesn't feel like something I've told myself to do. Like,
Yes, right.
oh, let's go tell the world that you're a compulsive gambler, or that you really struggled with self-sabotage, or that your
Or that
whole
you
family,
failed,
you
that big
failed.
dirty word. Oh my gosh, failure, right?
Yeah, and my debt from that failure was greater than my debt from gambling.
Mhm.
That was guilt-free debt, though. It's very different.
And at the end of the day, there really is no failure, is there? It's only
No.
feedback, it's learning, and it's fuel for the fire to how to continually get small, measurable progress, right? Because we can see the
Yeah.
impact.
I forget the line. It's probably something along the lines of like everybody's success is built upon a pile of a huge stack of failures. Like they are.
Mhm.
This is how we step up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the saying is like that's a difference between the novice and the master, right? The master's failed like millions of times, so they can show you all of the learnings.
Yes. And there's so many inspiring stories from history. Like if you look at the stories of the successful people, like we always focus on their success, but if you
Mhm.
really you read their biographies or you listen to their interviews, and they're telling us all about all the failure along the way and how they just kept going.
Mhm. I love that. So I hear that message, or I've heard you say that a few different ways today. It's like just keep going, don't stop. Whether it's in your recovery or following your dream, the passion that you have, that calling that you have in your heart, that's coming from something bigger than you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Well, amazing. Well, I know that I want to be really respectful of your time because I know that we have a hard stop, but I love this conversation. And is there anything else that you would like to share? What are you working on? How can people get in contact with you? And I know that you also have a podcast. I'll put some things in the show notes too. But if there's any final thoughts you want to share.
Yeah. People can get in touch via email, Terra, Terra at ambitiousaddicts.com. I'm always looking for people who want to share their lived experience stories on the podcast like you did. Thank you so much for being a guest. That's actually coming out later today.
Oh,
Um,
exciting.
yeah. So certainly any podcast topics, ideas, or if you'd like to come on and be a guest, I'd love to hear from you. In terms of coaching, I do offer, a 15-minute consult for free on the Ambitious Addicts website. So if anyone's kind of trying to understand or unpack how their thinking is impacting their actions and how they might be in their own way, certainly happy to have an introduction and do a little mini session and see if thought work might be a model you'd want to apply to your life. And lastly, I would say, if you've got this entrepreneurial spirit and this entrepreneurial bug, really take that lesson around failing and learning and the importance of your ideas in the world to heart, and keep going and keep growing, and you're gonna inspire someone else someday.
I love that. Thank you so much. And for
Yeah.
those of you who have been listening all the way to the end, I want to thank you guys for joining us. And if this sounds like you, if you sound like you are ready to really connect with your passion and your divine purpose for the reason why you're on this planet, then I want to invite you to join the 7-day On Purpose Challenge. For those kings and queens out there that know that there's something greater, they feel that possibility and they're ready to come and play in a container that is a loving community of people that are like-minded and ready to play full on out. I'm going to drop that link in the show notes as well. It starts Sunday and it's going to go every day next week from Sunday to Saturday. We are going to be meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning over Zoom. So come and check it out. Come join in community, and we are going to move some mountains, get past those barriers together.
Awesome.
All right.
Have fun in that work.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
so much
Well,
for having me.
yes, thank you for being here, Tara. And for those of you listening, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
I love your intro and outro.